Hi, welcome to Lily's Story channel. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe. Now the story begins. 7 years by Alpha Darius sighed, and on the night of my birthday banquet he finally proposed. The ring sparkled like a promise, one I had foolishly believed in. That illusion shattered when I found him in the bathroom, his childhood friend pressed against him, their bodies entwined. "Are you really going to marry her?" she purred, her hands trailing down his chest. Darius chuckled, the sound sharp and cruel. "Nix, she's just a distraction. You're Theon I truly want." The words should have broken me, but they didn't. I turned and walked away, heart calm but dignity intact. And when a powerful alpha, one who saw my worth, entered my life, Darius unraveled. He raged. He begged. He lost himself in desperation, grasping at something already gone. But I never stopped walking. I am Nyx, the Alpha King's daughter. The power in my veins is more than just an inheritance, it has been molded by generations before me. As a descendant of the strongest pack on the continent, everyone expected me to choose an alpha who matched my status, a leader whose name carried undeniable authority. But fate had other plans. Darius, son of Alpha Zane, came from a small, border pack insignificant to most, barely recognized in our world. Yet, long before we were born, his father saved my father's life. A promise was made, a debt owed, and our union was sealed. We weren't fated mates, but I loved him anyway. When he first confessed his love to me, whispers followed us. Wolves mocked him, saying a bastard like him dared to chase after a royal, expecting humiliation. Instead, I accepted him, knowing that he carried the honor of his father's sacrifice. From that day forward, I was his. For 7 years, I gave Darius everything: my love, my loyalty, my heart. He once treated me like his entire world, running to me whenever I was hurt. But slowly that devotion faded. The first sign was subtle, his warmth cooled. Then it became indifferent. The moment I became a target for assassination, my rank as the Alpha King's daughter no longer made me precious to him, it became an inconvenience. When I was attacked and left bloodied, he didn't come. When I lay in the hospital, clinging to life, he never showed his face. I told myself it was because he was busy, but deep down I knew something had changed. And then came her. The first time I met Talia was when I moved into the Ashenfang pack, after Darius ascended to Alpha. As his future Luna, I belonged by his side. But Talia didn't care. She flung herself into his arms the moment I stepped into the room, eyes filled with disdain. "This is your girlfriend?" she sneered, looking me over with amusement. "She's pretty average." My fingers curled into fists, but before I could speak, she gasped dramatically, covering her mouth. "Oh no, Alpha Darius, I didn't mean to be rude. Your girlfriend won't be mad, will she?" Darius's mother was present, so held my tongue, waiting for him to defend me like he always had. But his gaze was cold when it met mine. "Talia's young and speaks without thinking. Don't take it to heart." I stared at him, stunned. He had never dismissed me like that before. Talia giggled, still clinging to him. "Nyx, your glare is scaring me." I expected Darius to reprimand her, to tell her to respect me. Instead, he looked at me with a warning. "In front of my mother, you'd better behave. Don't cause a scene over something trivial." Trivial? My wolf stirred beneath my skin, but I swallowed my anger. That moment changed everything. The distance between us grew. The man I once loved, the one who swore to stand beside me, began treating me as though I were a mere obligation. When summer came, I left for my studies on ancient werewolf history, as my father had requested. Before I departed, I gave Darius the key to my villa, trusting him to visit whenever he pleased. I should have never left, because when I returned unannounced, I found something I could never forgive. There were women's shoes at the door. A designer bag, my bag, a birthday gift from my father, hung carelessly by the entrance. It hadn't been there before I left. And then I heard the laughter. In the kitchen, Darius stood with a cake in his hand, a smear of cream on Talia's face. She was wearing my clothes. They hadn't even noticed me. When Darius finally turned and saw me, his expression darkened, as if I were the intruder. "What are you doing here?" His voice was sharp, cold. My heart pounded. "Am I interrupting something, Alpha?" Talia pouted, eyes wide with mock innocence. "Nyx, don't make it sound like I'm some homewrecker." "Shut up," I growled, my wolf baring her teeth beneath my skin. Talia flinched, gripping Darius's arm. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. Darius and I have been like this since we were pups. It's just fun. I'll be more careful next time, I promise." Darius sighed, exasperated. "It's just play. You're overreacting." Overreacting. My blood burned. "This is our pack house. My house. Do you not think I deserve an explanation as to why she's wearing my clothes? Why my things are all over the place? Darius crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. She's my sister in all but blood. She's staying here until she finds her own villa. Your clothes, they're last season's Nick's. You weren't here to use them, and Talia needed something to wear. It's not a big deal. I felt my wolf howl, demanding to be set free. Since when did you decide my things were yours to give away? Talia reached for my hand. Nix, don't be angry. If you need someone to blame me, not Darius. I'll take responsibility. I yanked my hand back, unwilling to let her touch me. She gasped, stumbling backward right into a glass table. The sound of shattering glass filled the air as she collapsed. Blood pooled from a deep cut on her hand. She screamed, "My hunt, Alpadores, my hunt." Darius rushed to her side, completely ignoring me. And in that moment I realized he had already chosen. That night I made a decision. I pretended everything was fine. I endured Darius's neglect, his coldness, the way he defended her. I smiled at the banquet he held for my birthday, even as I felt our bond shatter. Then, as I slipped away from the party, I found him. In the bathroom. With her. Are you really going to marry her? Talia's voice was laced with amusement as her hands slid down his chest. Darius's cold laugh cut through me. Nix, she's nothing but a distraction. You're the one I truly want. Something inside me snapped. But I didn't break. I walked away heart torn, but head held high. And when another alpha, one who saw my worth, entered my life, Darius lost control. He went mad. Begging. Raging. Desperate to reclaim what he had so carelessly thrown away. But it was too late. Darius had made his choice. And now I was making mine. Nix's POV. Alpha Darius had been furious with me ever since that incident. As I watched him, my fiancé, the future alpha of the Ashenfang pack, my hope withered more each day. Talia was always there. Always smiling, always laughing, always. Too close. Closer than anyone had the right to be to my supposed alpha. I knew what the whispers were, that I was meant for someone more powerful, more distinguished. But Darius was mine and I was his. Or at least, he was supposed to be. As I gazed out the window of my room, the weight of my impending wedding pressed down on me. In just a week, I was set to become Luna of this pack. Yet, instead of excitement, an unrelenting dread clawed at me. Why wasn't he here with me? Every night, he vanished, spending hours with Talia. The pack had already accepted her presence, as if she rightfully belonged by his side. As if it wasn't supposed to be me. When had it come to this? A soft knock at my door broke through my thoughts. I knew before I even opened it wasn't Darius. It was Riker, his beta, sent to deliver another excuse. Nix, Riker greeted as he stepped inside, pity clouding his eyes. I despised that look, Alpha Darius. He's busy tonight. He won't be able to join you for dinner. Again. Busy with Talia, no doubt. Busy with what, Riker? My tone was sharp, and I made no effort to conceal my irritation. Pack matters or her? Riker hesitated, shifting uncomfortably under my gaze. It's always her, I bit out, pushing past him as I stormed down the hallway toward Darius's study. Riker followed, his voice edged with warning. Nix, don't do this. He's what? My alpha, my future husband. Or is he just Talia's toy now? I shoved the study door open, and there they were. Darius sat behind his desk, while Talia leaned over him. Far too close. Her hand resting possessively on his arm like she had every right to touch him. Nix. Darius's voice was sharp, icy. He looked at me like I was the one intruding, like I was the one who didn't belong. My wolf stirred beneath my skin, her hackles rising. This level of disrespect was unbearable. Alpha, we need to talk. Alone. Talia straightened, flashing me that same saccharine smile that always grated on my nerves. Oh, don't worry, Nix, she purred, her voice thick with false innocence. The alpha and I were just discussing pack matters. Pack matters, I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. In my pack house, wearing my clothes, using my things, I turned to Darius, but he didn't even flinch. He stood, his imposing presence towering over me, but I refused to cower. Talia stays, he stated, his voice final. My heart clenched, but I lifted my chin, refusing to betray my pain. I'm your fiancé. Your future Luna. She has no right to be here during our conversations. Darius's gaze hardened. And I'm the alpha, Nix. I decide who has the right to be here. My wolf paced restlessly within me, seething. You're the alpha, and I'm supposed to be your Luna. But lately, it feels like Talia's been the one taking that role instead of me. Talia moved even closer, resting her hand on his arm again. Nix, you're misunderstanding, she cooed, feigning innocence. I would never try to replace you. I'm just here to support Alpha Darius. We've known each other since childhood. It's completely innocent. Innocent. The word was acid on my tongue. Don't act like this is normal. You're always around him, always taking what's mine. Darius's growl filled the room, cutting me off. Enough, Nix. Talia is family. You're making a spectacle over nothing. Nothing, my fists clenched at my sides. You think this is nothing? Watching my so-called alpha spend all his time with another woman, letting her wear my clothes, use my things, and disrespect me is nothing. Talia let out a delicate, pitiful whimper, her eyes wide with mock sadness. I'm sorry, Nix. I didn't mean to upset you, she murmured. If you want, I can leave. I just didn't want to be alone. Darius pulled her close, shielding her as if I were the threat. You've done enough, he snapped at me. Talia's not going anywhere. If you can't accept that, maybe you're not fit to be Luna. His words struck deeper than any physical wound. How had it come to this? How had I, daughter of the Alpha King, once revered and respected, been cast aside for some she-wolf playing the victim? I stepped back, my wolf howling in agony inside me, but I swallowed the pain. I would not cry. Not in front of him. Not in front of her. Fine, I whispered, my voice trembling with restrained fury. But remember this, Darius, Luna or not, I am still the daughter of the Alpha King. And I will not be disrespected. For a brief moment, Talia's mask slipped, her tearful expression vanishing, replaced by a victorious smirk. She knew she had won for now. I turned sharply on my heel and strode out, finding Riker waiting outside. His gaze flickered with concern, but I shook my head. Don't, I warned, voice firm. Not tonight. Nix's POV. I lingered outside Alpha Darius's office, my heart hammering so hard it drowned out the rational part of my mind. I had lost track of how many times I had adamoted to speak with him, only for him to shut me out, his cold indifference to a wall I could never seem to break through. Summoning what little courage I had left, I inhaled deeply, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. He was seated at his desk, paperwork scattered in a haphazard mess. His dark gaze lifted to me for a fleeting second before dropping back to whatever pack business demanded his attention. Alpha, I spoke gently, shutting the door behind me. We need to talk. Not now, Nix. His voice was clipped, dismissive, the same tone I had been met with for weeks now. A surge of frustration welled up inside me, but I refused to let it overpower me. I'm not leaving until you listen. My wolf stirred restlessly, bristling at the way he barely acknowledged my presence. I wasn't just another pack member, I was his intended Luna. I had every right to demand his attention. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling sharply as his gaze met mine with obvious impatience. What is it? I hesitated, trying to find the right words. Where did I even begin? We're drifting apart, Darius, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I can feel it. Things between us haven't been the same. He dragged a hand down his face, exasperation clear in his posture. Is this about Talia again? Nix, she's always been in my life. You knew that. Not like this. I stepped forward, my frustration bubbling to the surface. You spend more time with her than you do with me. Whenever I see you, she's right there, always in between us. His jaw tensed, his expression hardening. Talia and I are friends. You need to accept that. You're overreacting. Overreacting. My wolf let out a low growl inside me, but I forced my voice to remain steady. Overreacting. Darius, she's wearing my clothes, inserting herself into moments that belong to us. You haven't been by my side in weeks. He stood abruptly, his imposing frame towering over me, his alpha presence suffocating. She's family. Nix, you're going to have to deal with it. This conversation is over. His words struck me like a physical blow. Deal with it? My throat tightened as I struggled to hold back the storm of emotions threatening to overtake me. I had come here hoping to fix what was broken, but it was as if I was talking to a stranger. Darius, I'm trying. My voice wavered. I'm trying to understand, but this isn't how mates should treat each other. We're supposed to trust one another. Instead, it feels like you've already replaced me with her. Don't be ridiculous, Nix. He waved a dismissive hand. Talia isn't replacing anyone. She's just helping. Helping, I wanted to scream. Helping with what? By pushing me aside. By taking my place before I've even had the chance to be your Luna. How can you do this to me, Royal? His expression darkened. Enough, Nix. You're being insecure, and that's beneath you. Insecure? A bitter laugh escaped me. Maybe if you treated me like I mattered, I wouldn't feel this way. The silence that followed was suffocating. Darius's gaze was cold, unreadable. As if I was the one at fault, as if I was unreasonable for feeling this way. But how could I not when Talia was everywhere? When she lingered in every room, in every conversation, in every stolen glance between us. Go to bed, Nix, he said at last, his tone laced with finality. I'm done talking about this. Maybe I should have walked away the moment I saw them embrace on the day he proposed to me. That night, I sat in the darkness of my room, staring blankly ahead, my thoughts tangled in an endless loop of doubt and pain. Alara's voice echoed in my mind, her warning still fresh, still sharp. She had been the only friend I'd made in the Ashenfang pack. Nix, she's not as innocent as she seems, Alara had told me just days before. Talia knows exactly what she's doing. She wants the alpha, and she'll use every trick in the book to get him. A knock at my door jolted me from my thoughts. For a moment, a flicker of hope flared in my chest. Maybe it was Darius, finally coming to his senses, finally seeing what I had been trying to tell him all along. But when I opened the door, it was Alara. She slipped inside without a word, her expression grave. How did it go? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Exactly how you'd expect, I muttered, sinking onto the edge of the bed. He doesn't see it, Alara. He doesn't care. He thinks I'm just being paranoid. Alara exhaled, sitting beside me. Darius is blind, but that doesn't mean you're powerless, Nix. You don't have to just sit back and let this happen. I turned to her, helplessness washing over me. What else can I do? I've tried everything. You're his future Luna, she reminded me. You're stronger than this. Don't let Talia push you out of what's rightfully yours. And if you don't love Alpha Darius anymore, leave him before it's too late. She was right. I wasn't powerless. Nix's POV. The whispers in Ashenfang pack carried an unease that settled deep in my bones. At first, I dismissed it as idle gossip, the kind that always swirled among wolves with too much time on their hands. But the longer I listened, the harder it was to ignore. There was something wrong, something lurking beneath the surface. I stood at the edge of the training grounds, my gaze locked on Darius as he led the warriors through their drills. He was every bit the alpha, strong, commanding, completely in control. Yet the air around the pack had changed. A tension ran through the ranks, an unspoken fear that no one dared to voice aloud. Did you hear? A hushed voice floated from nearby. I turned my head slightly, careful to keep my expression neutral. Two she-wolves huddled together, their words barely audible over the sounds of clashing weapons. About the Roks? One of them asked. The other nodded. They're organizing. Word is they're forming alliances. Fireclaw isn't as untouchable as it used to be. A chill crept up my spine. My wolf stirred uneasily, sensing my growing anxiety. Rogue alliances? That made no sense. Rogues were loners by nature, wild, unpredictable, and chaotic. They didn't form alliances. They didn't follow leaders. But if they were? I clenched my fists, trying to shake the dread clawing at my chest. It's just gossip, I told myself. Yet deep down I knew better. Are you all right? Alara's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I glanced at her, finding concern in her sharp gaze. I don't know, I admitted, keeping my voice low as we walked away from the training grounds. There's been talk. About the Roks. About unrest in the pack. Alara's expression darkened. I've heard the same. The warriors are uneasy. Darius is strong, but if the rogues are organizing, it could be a real threat. I shook my head. Why would they do that? Rogues don't work together. It's not in their nature. Alara hesitated before answering, her voice grim. Unless someone is leading them. I stopped mid-step, her words landing like a blow to the stomach. Leading them? My throat went dry. Who would be foolish enough to try? I don't know, she admitted. But if it's true, Fireclaw is in danger. And Darius, she exhaled sharply, casting a glance toward the training grounds. He might not see it until it's too late. A sick feeling settled in my gut. Darius had always been a strong leader, but lately he'd been distracted. By Talia. By the strain in our relationship. By everything except the growing danger looming over us. I need to tell him, I said, determination stiffening my spine. Alara gave me a skeptical look. And you think he'll listen? I hesitated. Darius had barely listened to me about Talia. What made me think this would be any different? He has to, I whispered, but even I wasn't convinced. That night, I found Darius in his office, the scent of pine and smoke wrapping around me like a ghost of what we used to be. The space was filled with scattered papers and half-rolled maps. Nix, I'm busy, he said without looking up. I closed the door behind me, my heart hammering. I know, but this is important. His eyes flicked up, irritation flashing in them. If this is about Talia again, I don't want to hear it. It's not, I said, though her name always sat bitterly on my tongue. It's about the pack. The rogues. His frown deepened. What about them? I took a step closer. They're forming alliances. There's unrest in the pack. People are talking, Darius. Even the warriors are on edge. Darius leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. And you believe them? Yes, I said firmly. Darius, what if this isn't just talk? What if someone is leading them? You can't ignore this. His gaze darkened, his alpha presence pressing against me. I know my responsibilities, Nix. I don't need you questioning how I lead. My stomach twisted. He wasn't listening. I'm not questioning you, I whispered. I just want you to take this seriously. For the pack. He stood, turning away. There's no danger, he said, his tone final. You're worrying over nothing. I swallowed back the sting of his words, realizing that he had already made up his mind. He wouldn't listen. And that terrified me. Nix's POV. The night air pressed against me like an unseen force, thick with something far more sinister than just the chill of the wind. Every instinct within me was on high alert as I moved through the dense trees, keeping to the shadows, silent and watchful. For days, an uneasy feeling had coiled itself around my chest, whispering that something was wrong. Something dangerous. Then I saw Herdelia. She stood at the edge of our territory, her posture rigid, her gaze locked onto the darkness before her. But she wasn't alone. A figure lingered just beyond the tree-line, cloaked in shadow, their presence exuding an unfamiliar, almost menacing energy. This wasn't a Fireclaw wolf. This was something else. Something wrong. Lowering myself, I pressed against the trunk of a tree, my breath slow and measured. I strained to hear them over the rustling of the leaves, my heart hammering in my chest. I told you, Talia's voice was sharp, cutting through the night like the edge of a blade. Darius is blind. He'll never see it coming. Once I get my hands on that stone, it's over. A chill spread through me. My fingers curled into the damp earth as I tried to process her words. Darius, what was she planning? The figure shifted, stepping slightly into the moonlight. Their face remained obscured, but their voice was rough, skeptical. And you're sure you can handle him? He's not weak, Talia. If he catches even a hint of what you're doing. She laughed then, a sound devoid of warmth, of anything remotely human. I have him wrapped around my little finger, she sneered. He's been eating out of my palm since the start. Darius is too blinded by his own desires to see the truth. His so-called mate, she spat the word like it disgusted her, is nothing but a footnote in his story. When I take over the Ashenfang pack, she won't even be a memory. My stomach lurched. It wasn't just manipulation, it was a game to her. A calculated, deliberate deception designed to strip Darius of everything. And he didn't even see it. The realization felt like ice settling in my bones. But Talia wasn't finished. Once I control Fireclaw, the royals are next, she continued, her voice brimming with confidence. The rogues are already falling in line. When the time is right, we'll move against them. No more hierarchy. No more ruling class. We'll take it all. The blood in my veins turned to fire. The rumors had been true. Every whispered warning, every hushed conversation behind closed doors Talia had been orchestrating something much larger than I could have imagined. This wasn't about Darius or me or even Fireclaw. This was a war. The figure watching her seemed unconvinced. Darius is loyal to the royals, they reminded her, their voice low, cautious. He won't just turn against them. Not willingly, Talia admitted. But once I have full control of the pack, he won't have a choice. He'll either submit, or he'll fall like the rest of them. I pressed a hand against my mouth to stop the growl rising in my throat. She was planning to turn Fireclaw against the royals. Against the kingdom. And she thought Darius would be too far under her spell to stop her. I needed to warn him. Now. But as I shifted, trying to ease back into the cover of the trees, the conversation took a darker turn. What about her? The figure asked, nodding toward the pack house in the distance. I stiffened. Nix. They meant me. Talia's expression twisted into something cruel. She's insignificant, she said dismissively. Once Darius claims me as his Luna, she'll be forced out. And if she refuses? She paused, her eyes gleaming with malice. I'll handle it. A sharp, icy terror shot through me. She wasn't talking about exile. She wasn't talking about pushing me aside politically. She was talking about eliminating me. For a long, tense moment I stayed frozen, every muscle locked, my breath shallow as I tried to keep my fury in check. My wolf howled inside me, desperate to tear through the trees, to confront her right then and there. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because if I did, she'd find a way to twist it. Darius wouldn't believe me, not without proof. Not when she had already sunk her claws so deep into his mind. If I went to him now with nothing but accusations, she'd make me look like a jealous fool. I had to be smart. I had to be patient. Gritting my teeth, I carefully backed away, my movements slow, deliberate. Every step away from that clearing felt heavier, as if the weight of what I had just heard was pressing down on me. But one thing had become painfully clear. Darius was in danger. The pack was in danger, and whether or not he believed me, I wasn't going to let Talia tear Fireclaw apart. Not while I still had breath in my body. Nyx's POVI paced the length of my chambers, my mind spinning with the revelation I'd just uncovered about Talia's treachery. And now, on top of it all, my father had summoned me back to the Royal Pack Castle with no explanation other than, "Return. Immediately. There's a visitor." I hadn't been home in months, having dedicated myself to preparing for my role as the future Luna in the Ashenfang Pack, though lately, that future seemed more uncertain with each passing day. The ride back to the royal castle was slow, each bump in the road doing little to shake the growing pit of unease in my stomach. Talia's schemes, Darius's coldness, and now whatever awaited me at home, it was all becoming too much to handle. As I stepped through the grand gates of my father's Royal Pack Castle, the tension in the air was palpable. Guards stood rigid, their eyes scanning the surroundings as if anticipating an attack. I hurried inside, greeted by my father's beta, Aaron, whose usual stoic expression was unusually grave. "Nyx," he nodded, his voice low, "your father is waiting for you in the throne room. You must go immediately." I blinked, surprised by the urgency in his tone, but I nodded following him through the grand halls that echoed with the weight of my family's legacy. The closer we got to the throne room, the heavier the air seemed to become. When the doors opened, stepped inside, my eyes immediately drawn to my father. Alpha King Eric stood tall and proud, as always, but his eyes were filled with an intensity that made my wolf stir uneasily. And then I saw him. Alpha King Thorian. He stood at the center of the room, his presence impossible to ignore. The moment our eyes met, the world seemed to stop. His piercing gaze locked onto mine, sending a shockwave through my entire being. My wolf surged forward with a force I'd never experienced before, desperate to get closer to him. From the moment my eyes locked with his, I knew something had shifted in my world, something deep, elemental. Alpha King Thorian stood across the room, his presence like a storm on the horizon, unavoidable, untamed. His piercing eyes seemed to see through to the core of me, unsettling me in a way that was more intoxicating than frightening. My heart stuttered, then began to pound furiously. I knew this feeling, this undeniable pull. Mates! The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. The moon goddess had chosen him for me. The scent of pine and steel radiated from him, mingling with the warmth of the hall. I tried to look away, to break the invisible thread pulling me toward him, but I couldn't. His gaze was magnetic, and the intensity of it sent shivers down my spine. He was taller than any wolf I'd ever seen, his frame powerful, his posture commanding. His black hair, streaked with silver, fell just past his shoulders, and his eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity. His aura was dark, dangerous, and yet I couldn't tear my eyes away from him. "Nyx." His voice was a low rumble that seemed to caress my name, sending a spark of heat curling through my veins. I swallowed hard, trying to find my footing on the unsteady ground. "Alpha King Thorian," I greeted, my voice betraying none of the turmoil roiling within me. "Welcome to the Royal Pack." My words were polite, but inside I was screaming. How could I possibly ignore this? He inclined his head slightly, his eyes never leaving mine. "Thank you, Princess. But I suspect there is more to this meeting than pleasantries." His lips curled into a knowing smile, and I had to force myself to breathe. How could he be so calm, so collected? Did he not feel the pull as I did? Or was he simply better at hiding it? Nyx's POV. I glanced around the hall where my father, Alpha King Eric, was deep in conversation with his advisors. Would he sense the change in the air, the bond thrumming beneath my skin, the way my wolf stirred, restless and eager, aching to be closer to Thorian? She knew, as I did, that this was no ordinary attraction. But how would I tell my father that the daughter of the Alpha King was destined for someone other than the Urson chosen for her? "Walk with me," Thorian murmured, his voice like velvet, a command wrapped in seduction. I hesitated, but only for a moment. Nodding, I turned and led him toward the gardens. The cool evening air was a welcome relief from the heat coursing through my body. I could feel him behind me, every step he took vibrating through my bones. We stopped by the fountain, the sound of water cascading providing a momentary reprieve from the tension crackling between us. "Alpha King Thorian," I started, my voice firmer now that we were away from prying eyes. You know as well as I do the complications of this situation. His gaze was unwavering. Complications, he repeated, his tone laced with awed amusement. Or opportunities. I scoffed, though my pulse raced at his words. You think my father would see it that way? I was already promised to Alpha Darius. An agreement sealed long ago, in blood and duty. His expression darkened slightly at the mention of Darius. I've heard of this arrangement. But the bond between mates is sacred, more so than any political convenience. Or are you telling me you feel nothing? My breath caught in my throat. I didn't say that, I whispered, unable to meet his gaze. My wolf howled within me, a mixture of frustration and longing. She wanted me to be honest, to claim what was ours. But I was not ready to face the storm that would follow. But I have a duty. To a man who neglects you? Thorian cut in, his voice sharp. Who lets another woman take the place that should be yours? His words struck a nerve. So he knew everything about me before coming here. I don't care about Darius now. I am concerned for my people, I snapped, though I wasn't sure who I was defending, the pack members or myself. You don't know what's at stake. I know enough, he countered, stepping closer. His proximity was intoxicating, and my wolf practically awed at the nearness of him. I know that you deserve more than to be a pawn in someone else's game, Nyx. My name on his lips again, the way he said it like it was something precious, something worth fighting for. It broke something inside me. And what do you propose, Alpha King? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. That I break a promise made before I was even born. That I betray that promise. For what? For us, he said softly, his hand reaching out, hovering just above my cheek, as if he were afraid to touch. For a bond that can never be broken. You are mine, princess. My breath hitched. His words, spoken with such certainty, wrapped around my heart like a vine, squeezing tightly. If we do this, I began, my voice trembling, there's no turning back. My father will understand in time, Thorian interrupted gently. He's a king, yes, but he's also a father. He will want what's best for you. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to throw caution to the wind and follow the pull that seemed to draw me closer to him, closer to the life I had always dreamed of but never dared to hope for. I need time, I whispered, feeling the weight of my decision press down on me. Thorian nodded, his eyes softening. Take all the time you need, Nyx. I'll be here waiting. Just know this fate doesn't wait forever. If it takes longer than my patience could take, I'll take you away from him myself. Nyx's POV. After our talk, I was finally back to Ashenfang Pack. The air felt thicker, as if weighed down by the tension radiating from every corner of the territory. I could feel it seeping into my skin, settling in my bones. I hadn't seen Darius for days. Not really. Not the way I needed to. He was always surrounded by his beta, his advisors. And Talia. Always Talia. Her laugh, her touch, her scent sweet like poisoned honey clinging to him. My wolf growled in frustration, pacing within me, restless and agitated. She wanted out, wanted to rip the smug smile off Talia's face. But I held back. Barely. Enough, I muttered to myself, pushing through the doors of the pack house, determination burning in my veins. It was time. I had made my decision. I was done with this promise. Why do I have to suffer the disrespect just for a promise of the past? The mate bond with Alpha King Thorian still thrummed beneath my skin, a constant reminder of what could be, what should be. And I couldn't keep lying to myself or to Darius. I found him in his study, hunched over a map of the territory, his brow furrowed in concentration. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the Darius I'd once hoped to love. But it was fleeting, a ghost of a memory, and as soon as I saw the tension in his jaw and the way his eyes glanced to Talia, who was draped across a nearby chair, I knew there was nothing left for me here. Alpha, I said, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. Talia's eyes flicked to mine, her lips curling into a smirk, but I ignored her. This was between him and me. He looked up, his expression indifferent. Nyx, what is it? I took a breath, steadying myself. We need to talk. Alone. Talia scoffed, a mocking sound that grated on my nerves. Anything you need to say to Alpha Darius, you and say in front of me. I glared at her. I knew who she was. I knew that she was a traitor. Wasn't asking. Darius waved a dismissive hand. It's fine, Talia. Stay. He turned back to me, his expression already bored. What's so important? Nyx, I'm busy. Anger flared hot and fast, but I pushed it down. I'm breaking off the engagement. Silence. For a moment, I thought he hadn't heard me. Then he snorted, his lips twisting into a cruel smile. Is that so? He said, as if I'd just told him the weather forecast. And why is that? My jaw clenched, but I kept my voice steady. Because this isn't working, Alpha. You're in love with someone else. You've made that more than clear. Careful, Princess, Talia purred from her seat, her eyes glinting with malice. That sounds an awful lot like jealousy. I ignored her, my focus solely on Darius. I deserve more than to be treated like a second choice, I continued, my voice growing stronger. And you deserve to be with the person you really want. Darius leaned back in his chair, arms crossing over his chest. You think you're doing me a favor, Nyx? Yes, I said firmly. I do. For a moment, I thought I saw something in his eyes, regret, perhaps, or some semblance of emotion. But it vanished as quickly as it came. He laughed, a harsh, cold sound that made my skin crawl. You always were too sensitive, he muttered. If you want to go, go. I'm not stopping you. A part of me had hoped, foolishly, that he would fight for me, that he would realize what he was losing and try to make it right. But as I looked at him, really looked at him, I saw the truth. He was already gone, maybe he'd never been there at all. Fine, I said softly, my heart breaking a little with each word. But remember this. Alpha, when she turns on you, and she will, don't say I didn't warn you. Talia's laugh was sharp, cut Tina through the tension. You think you're so clever, don't you, Nyx? Always the dutiful daughter, always so righteous, but you were never meant to be here. Never meant to be his Luna. I turned to her, my eyes narrowing. And you were never meant to be anything more than a snake in the grass, Talia. Darius stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Enough, he snapped, more out of annoyance than anything else. This is a waste of time. If you're leaving, Nyx, then leave. You're not my problem anymore. My wolf howled in fury, but I kept her in check, my eyes burning into his. Goodbye, Darius. I turned on my heel, every step away from him feeling like a release, a weight lifting off my shoulders. I reached the doorway when he spoke again. You're making a mistake, Nyx. I paused, glancing back. No, Alpha. You did. Third-person POV. The Ashenfang pack was buzzing like a hive kicked open, the news spreading through every corner of the territory. Nyx was no longer going to marry Alpha Darius, and Alpha King Thorian was on their continent. Whispers spoke of his mysterious visit, but the rumors that followed were even more electrifying. Talia, ever cunning and opportunistic, saw her moment and seized it with both hands. She strolled through the pack, her words soft but sharp as she planted seeds of doubt in the minds of anyone who would listen. It's no coincidence that Nyx broke off her engagement just as the Alpha King arrived, she murmured to a cluster of pack warriors, her eyes wide with feigned concern. You didn't hear this from me, but they say she's been meeting him in secret. Why else would she suddenly decide to leave Alpha Darius? The rumors caught like wildfire, crackling through the pack until it reached Darius himself. Talia had timed it perfectly, knowing that his pride was already wounded by Nyx's sudden decision to end their engagement. He was alone in his study when his beta, Riker, brought the news to him. Alpha, Riker said carefully, watching Darius's expression closely. There's talk going around. About Princess Nyx and Alpha King Thorian. Darius's eyes snapped up, his face darkening. What talk? He growled. Riker hesitated, sensing the brewing storm in his Alpha's stance. They're saying she's been seeing him in secret. That she broke off the engagement because she chose him over you. The room seemed to grow colder. Darius's wolf stirred, snarling beneath his skin, and his hands curled into fists. Are you telling me that Nyx, my fiancé, has been sneaking around with that half-blood Alpha King? His voice was low, dangerous. Riker remained silent, wisely avoiding meeting his Alpha's gaze. It's just what people are saying, Alpha. Darius's mind was a whirlwind of disbelief and fury. Nyx with Thorian? The idea was absurd, unthinkable. She was too proud, too devoted to her duty to ever do something so reckless. But the whispers gnawed at his mind, feeding his insecurities. She had ended the engagement so abruptly, without much of an explanation. Could it be true? Who started this? He demanded, though deep down he already knew. Riker shifted uncomfortably. Talia mentioned it first. But, Alpha, you know how rumors are. They spread like wildfire. Talia. Of course. Darius's eyes narrowed, his thoughts running wild. But this wasn't just some harmless gossip. This was a direct hit to his pride, his status, and his claim as an Alpha. If Nyx had really chosen another, especially one as powerful and controversial as Thorian, it would make him look weak like a fool. Talia found him shortly after, her expression painted with concern and just a hint of satisfaction. Alpha Darius, she said softly, her voice full of sympathy. I heard the rumors too. I didn't want to believe it, but... He turned to her, his eaves blazing. Did you know about this? Talia's eaves widened. And she shook her head, a perfect picture of innocence. I swear I didn't. But I've seen the way she looks, distracted, as if her heart isn't here. And if Thorian has made his move, well, who could resist? Darius's jaw tightened, his anger simmering. She wouldn't dare, he muttered, but doubt was creeping in, a toxic whisper in his mind. He'd seen Nyx after her return from the royal castle. She had been different, more distant. He had thought it was just her being stubborn, rebelling against him and pulling away. But maybe it had been something more. She's too proud to go to him, he insisted, trying to convince himself as much as Talia. Pride can crumble when someone offers you power, Talia murmured, stepping closer, her hand brushing his arm. And Alpha King Thorian has plenty of that. Maybe she wanted to be with someone stronger, someone who could match her ambition. Darius's wolf growled, his blood boiling. She was supposed to be mine, he hissed. Mine to protect, mine to lead. Talia's eyes softened, her lips curving into a sympathetic smile. Maybe it's for the best, Alpha Darius. If she's willing to betray you now, imagine what she could have done as Luna. You deserve someone loyal, someone who knows where they belong. He looked at her, searching for some kind of clarity. Talia had always been there, constant and unwavering. She'd stood by him through thick and thin, unlike Nyx, who had always seemed to be on the verge of leaving. I thought she'd come crawling back, he muttered, frustration etched in every line of his face. Begging for me to take her back. Talia smiled, sly and sweet. Maybe she still will. But by then it might be too late. Darius's eyes darkened. He wasn't sure what stung him more, the idea of Nyx with another alpha, or the realization that he might have lost her to someone more powerful. Either way, his pride was wounded, and his wolf wouldn't stand for it. We'll see about that, he growled. His mind was made up. If Nyx thought she could shame him, embarrass him in front of his pack, she was sorely mistaken. He'd show her that no one betrayed Alpha Darius, and got away with it. Talia's smile widened as she watched him leave, her plan coming together perfectly. The seeds of doubt were planted, and she knew it wouldn't be long before they sprouted into something far more destructive. As Darius stormed off, his thoughts a tangled mess of anger and betrayal, he couldn't see the web tightening around him. He could only see the shadows of his own pride, and the looming threat of losing everything to a rival he could not control. Nyx's POV. I stood on the balcony of the royal castle, the cold night air biting at my skin. Below, the courtyard bustled with courts and scouts, preparing for the potential storm ahead. Rumors moved faster than the wind in the werewolf world, and the latest ones had reached even here, the royal pack's territory. Talia, the Viper, had done it. She had finally manipulated Darius into making her Luna of the Ashenfang pack. I almost laughed when I heard it. The idea was absurd. Darius, the so-called alpha of the Ashenfang pack, had been blinded so thoroughly by Talia's honeyed words that he'd handed her the title of Luna without so much as a second thought. I shook my head, unable to believe how easily he'd been fooled. If he wasn't so dangerous in his ignorance, he'd be laughable. What is it? Thorian's deep, steady voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to find him standing there, his presence. Comforting force amidst my swirling emotions. He always seemed to know when I needed him most. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. It's Darius. He's finally done it. He's made Talia his Luna. The words felt ridiculous even as I said them, and yet they were true. Thorian's expression darkened, his eyes narrowing like a predator assessing a threat. So the snake shows her true colors, he murmured, and Darius is too blinded by infatuation to see he's been wrapped around her finger. I couldn't help the small smirk that tugged at my lips. Darius is a fool, always was. But Talia's not stupid. She has an agenda, and she's already got her claws deep in the pack. If she's their Luna now, she'll be able to manipulate them from within, rally them around her cause. Her cause? Thorian repeated thoughtfully, moving to stand beside me. His shoulder brushed mine, sending a warm shiver through me. Even now, with everything happening, that pull between us was impossible to ignore. The bond hummed like a live wire whenever he was near. Her cause is more than just taking over a pack. She's aligning with rogue forces. She wants more than just Fireclaw. I nodded. She wants to take it all. She wants to take down my father and claim the royal line, and she thinks Darius and the Ashenfang pack are her ticket. Thorian's hand found mine, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. We can't let that happen. The warmth of his touch anchored me, grounding me against the rising tide of anger and betrayal. No, we can't. I arred. Talia's not going to act rashly now that she has control. She's going to bide her time, build her power base. Thorian's lips curled into a small wry smile. Then we'll have to make the first move. I glanced at him, my pulse quickening not from fear, but from the anticipation that came with being beside him. You mean track down her allies? Expose her plans before she has a chance to strike. Exactly, he said, his eye glinting with a mixture of challenge and something deeper. We have an advantage she doesn't know about. You. I raised an eyebrow. Me? You know her. You've seen her true face. And she underestimated you. She thinks you're out of the picture, licking your wounds. But we know better. He paused, his gaze steady on mine. And then there's the small matter of you being my mate. The word sent a thrill through me, my wolf stirring with fierce satisfaction. Mate! It felt right in a way nothing with Darius ever had. So, you think we should track the rogue alliances she's building? I asked, focusing back on the matter at hand. Cut them off before they can mobilize. Thorian nodded. She's hiding in the shadows. We shine a light there, flush her out. I found myself smiling, a genuine one this time. I like the way you think, Alpha King. He chuckled, the sound low and deep, sending another shiver through me. I'm glad. Because we're going to need all the cunning we have to outmaneuver her. Third person's POV. Talia stood in the moonlit clearing, her eyes fixed on the ancient stone nestled deep in the heart of Fireclaw territory. She could feel the power pulsing beneath the earth, a hidden heartbeat that seemed to echo her own hunger for control. This was it, the true prize she had sought all along, the key to unlocking everything she had schemed for. She had manipulated Darius and clawed her way to the title of Luna, and now it was time to claim what rightfully belonged to her. Are you sure this is wise, Luna? One of her followers asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. He was a rogue she'd picked up along the way, one of many. His loyalty was thin and weak, but she didn't need loyalty. She needed power. Silence, she snapped, her voice like ice. Do not question me. The stone has been hidden here for centuries, right under the noses of those fools who call themselves alphas. And yet none of them had the vision to claim it. She crouched down, her fingers tracing the markings on the stone, ancient symbols glowing faintly in the moonlight. But I do. The rogue wisely fell silent, and Talia continued her work. She could still remember when she first heard of the stone. The dark forces she had aligned herself with, the rogues, the outcasts, the beasts who thrived in chaos, had spoken of it in hushed tones. They had whispered about the royals studying ancient artifacts, hungry for the stone's power. The fools! She'd been the one clever enough to dig deeper, to find the map that pointed to its hidden location. She knew then she had to seize this opportunity, had to ally herself with those who could help her achieve her goals. Tell me again, why are we even following you, Talia? Another rogue muttered, this one braver, bolder. You think this rock is going to make us kings? Talia's eyes shot up, blazing with fury. This rock, as you call it, will give us power beyond your imagination. With it, I will be unstoppable, and those who stand with me will share in that power. Or, you can leave now and be nothing more than a footnote in history. Your choice. A tense silence fell over the group. Talia knew she had them. Greed was a simple motivator, and it worked every time. With a triumphant smile, she turned back to the stone and began the ritual she had prepared for months. She chanted the ancient words under her breath, the air growing heavy and thick with power. The ground trembled beneath them, a low rumble like the growl of a waking beast. A sharp, unnatural wind whipped through the clearing, and Talia's eyes snapped open as the stone began to glow brighter, the symbols on its surface pulsing with a life of their own. She could feel the power coursing through her veins, flooding her senses with raw, unrestrained energy. This was it. This was what she had been waiting for. Yes. She breathed, feeling the surge of strength ripple through her muscles, her bones, her very soul. This is what true power feels like. Her followers watched, some in awe, some in fear. She didn't care. They were nothing more than tools to be used. She had what she needed now. She could gather the dark forces she had been cultivating, the Roque wolves, the malevolent creatures lurking in the shadows, all bent on one thing: destruction. She turned to her assembled rogues, her eyes glowing with the same eerie light as the stone. We no longer bow to the whims of the so-called royal family, she declared. We take what is ours. The royal line has ruled long enough. It's time for a new order. The rogues murmured in agreement, stirred by her words, by the palpable power radiating from her. Talia could see the hunger in their eyes, the bloodlust. They were ready, and she knew where she would strike first. The royal castle, she said, a wicked smile curling her lips. During the summit, with the precious Alpha King Thorian in attendance, we will strike when they least expect it. Cut off the head of the snake, and the body will crumble. Her words sent a thrill through the Roques, a wave of excitement and fear. She reveled in it. This was her moment, her ascension. She would bring chaos to the continent, topple the royal family, and burn down everything that stood in her way as the night deepened. Talia stared into the distance, her gaze fixed on the direction of the royal pack. She could almost see the castle walls, almost taste the victory that awaited her. The stone pulsed with power in her hand, a dark, intoxicating rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. "Prepare yourselves," she ordered, her voice cold and commanding. "We move at dawn. Let them think they are safe in their fortress. We will bring the war to their doorstep." And with that, Talia, the new Luna of Fireclaw, prepared to unleash hell on the royal family. The final battle was about to begin. Nyx's POV. The great hall of the royal castle was packed with alphas and lunas from every corner of the continent. The political summit was meant to be a show of strength and unity, a chance to form alliances against the rogue threats that had been growing more dangerous by the day. But something felt wrong. My wolf sensed it, a restless energy prickling under my skin. I stood close to Alpha King Thorian, my fated mate. Even in this room of formidable leaders, his presence was commanding, a mix of werewolf and vampire blood giving him a unique edge. I could feel the connection between us humming like a taut wire. Thorian's gaze was sharp as he spoke with a group of alphas, but every so often, his eyes would flicker to mine, a silent question there. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low enough for only me to hear. "Something's off." I nodded, my senses heightened. "I feel it too. Talia won't stay quiet for long. She's already got her claws in Darius and the Ashenfang pack. She's hungry for more." Thorian's lips tightened, his jaw set in that determined way I'd come to recognize. If she dares show her face here, she'll regret it. But Talia was bolder than we thought. The first sign of trouble came with a shattering roar that echoed through the castle. Screams followed, and the heavy oak doors of the great hall burst open. Chaos erupted as rogue wolves and twisted creatures stormed in, their eyes wild with bloodlust. The dark forces had launched their attack, and right amid the summit. "Protect the royals," Thorian commanded, his voice cutting through the panic like a blade. The guards sprang into action, but the enemies were already swarming. The eye was at Thorian's side in AR instant. "She's too bold to attack here when all-powerful Alpha are present," I growled, my blood singing with the need for battle. She thought I was weakened, that her rumors and betrayal had broken me. How wrong she was. "Let her come," Alpha King Thorian replied, his eyes flashing wreck as his vampire side surfaced. "We'll end this here." We dove into the fray, side by side. Thorian was a force of nature, his movements a blur as he tore through the enemy ranks with a deadly grace. His claws slashed through flesh, his fangs glinting in the low light as he moved like a shadow among the rogues. I couldn't help but admire him. His power was both terrifying and beautiful. But I had no time to get lost in my thoughts. I had my own fight. My blood, the blood of the Alpha King's firstborn, roared to life within me, shifted, bones snapping and reforming, for sprouting as I became the wolf. I leaped into the chaos, claws tearing through rogue wolves that dared to come near. I fought with a fury I hadn't felt in a long time, a fury fueled by betrayal, by the years I'd wasted chained to a duty that had only brought me pain. "Nyx," I heard Alara's voice, my friend from Ashenfang pack, somewhere in the chaos, but I couldn't look for her now. My focus was on the fight, on survival. Thorian's presence beside me was a steady force, a comfort amidst the madness. "On your left," he shouted, and I spun, catching a roque mid-leap, sending him crashing into the stone wall. We fought like we were made for this, like every strike, every movement was part of some greater dance. The room was a blur of movement and blood, and yet my senses sharpened on one figure. Saw her then, standing at the entrance of the great hall, her face twisted in a cold smile. Talia. She was draped in black, her new Luna's cloak flowing behind her like a shadow. Her eyes gleamed with that unnatural light. The stone she had taken pulsing in her hanky. Stone. Was it one of the ancient stones I had been studying for years? "Nyx," she called out, her voice dripping with malice. "Come out and play, little princess." I growled low in my throat. "Talia," I hissed, shifting back into my human form. The wolves around us still fought, but my focus narrowed to her. I could feel Thorian's eyes on me, his protective instincts roaring through our bond, but I met his gaze with a nod. "This is my fight," I said, my voice steady, though my heart pounded in my chest. Thorian's eyes burned with concern, but he nodded, understanding. "I've got your back, always." I stepped forward, pushing through the chaos toward Talia, her smirk growing wider with every step I took. She thought she could break me, thought I was still the naive girl pining for Darius's approval. But I was so much more than that now. I was a warrior. I was the daughter of the Alpha King. Nyx's POV. The battlefield was a blur of teeth, fur, and fury. My wolf pushed against the ground, claws digging deep into the earth as we charged forward. Talia, in her wolf form, was a sleek shadow against the moonlit sky, her black fur blending into the darkness. But I wasn't here to hide, I was here to end this. She snarled, her eyes gleaming with the unnatural glow of the ancient stone she wielded. I could feel its dark energy pulsing from her, a twisted power she had no right to wield. It would be the end of her. I circled her, keeping my body low, my muscles coiled tight. My breath steamed in the cold night air. You think you can take my place, take the royal pack? I growled, my voice echoing through our mental link, strong and clear. Her lips curled back over her teeth in a vicious grin. Right, and I'll make sure of that, she spat back, her voice dripping with malice. You're nothing, Nyx. You never were. Her words hit a raw nerve, but I didn't flinch. Instead, my wolf growled low in my chest, the sound rumbling like distant thunder. We'll see about that, I replied. Come and face me, Talia. Let's see if you're as strong as you pretend to be. She lunged without warning, a black blur of speed and claws. I dodged to the side, my wolf instincts sharp and fast, and struck back with my own powerful swipe. My claws raked her flank, and she yelped, twisting away. Blood stained the ground where she landed. I don't need to pretend, she hissed, circling me again. You've already lost everything. Darius, your Luna title, Fireclaw. Keep him, I cut in, my voice filled with disdain. He was never mine to begin with. And I am still a royal blood, have you forgotten? I will never be nothing like you pretend to believe. She roared in anger and came at me again, but I was ready. We clashed in a whirlwind of teeth and claws, snarling and snapping as we tried to bring each other down. She was stronger than I'd expected, bolstered by that cursed stone. But I had something she didn't, a lifetime of training, a bloodline of alphas, and a rage that burned brighter than any stolen power. She aimed for my throat, but I twisted away, snapping my jaws at her hind leg. I caught her, clamping down hard until I felt the crunch of bone. She howled in pain, her body yerking back as she tried to wrench free. Is this all you've got? I taunted, my grip still firm. All that power, and you're still nothing. She twisted, her jaws finding purchase on my shoulder, and I felt her teeth sink deep. Pain flared hot and sharp, but I didn't let go. Instead I shook my head, tearing into her leg further until she let go with a scream of agony. You'll regret this, she panted, stumbling back. I will end you, Nyx, you can try, I replied, voice cold and unyielding. But you'll never be Aoil. Not when I am alive. Talia's eyes flashed, and she called on the stone's power again. I felt the surge of energy rush toward me, dark and twisted. I planted my paws and braced for impact, my mind steady. The wave hit me like a hammer, but I stood firm, my power rising to meet it. My wolf roared, and the air around us seemed to tremble. I could feel the energy of my bloodline, the strength of my ancestors coursing through me, pushing back against Talia's dark magic. Her power faltered, the stone's glow flickering like a dying flame. Fear flashed in her eyes, and I knew she felt it too. She was losing. With a burst of speed, I lunged, crashing into her with all my might. We rolled across the ground, a tangle of fur and fury, but I kept my momentum, kept pushing. I needed to end this. Now! I clamped my jaws around her throat, pinning her to the ground. She struggled beneath me, her eyes wide, wild with panic. No, she choked out. You can't. Yes, I can, I snarled, tightening my grip. For the continent. For every life you mean to destroy. I bit down harder, my fangs sinking deep into her neck. I felt the hot rush of blood, the snap of bone. Talia's struggles weakened, her body twitching beneath me. She let out a final, desperate snarl, her voice rasping through the mind link. Darius! Fuck! After everything I did to fool you, it will end to this. And then she went limp. The stone fell from her grasp, its light finally extinguished. I released her, panting heavily, my chest heaving with the exertion of the fight. Talia was dead. The darkness she had brought to the Ashenfang pack was gone. But as I looked up, I saw Darius standing there, his wolf form towering, his eyes wide and filled with disbelief. Talia! She was using me, he said, his voice broken, raw with realization. I let her destroy everything. My heart was still pounding with adrenaline, but I forced myself to be calm. You let yourself be blinded, Darius, I said, voice cold. You were supposed to protect your pack, but you let this happen. His head lowered, ears flattened in shame. I failed. I failed you and I failed my pack. I didn't have any sympathy left for him. You did, I agreed. And now you have to face the consequences. He nodded slowly, eyes filled with regret. I will step down as Alpha. Beta Riker will take over. It's the only way to save the Ashenfang pack. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Talia was gone, and Darius would pay for his failures. I turned away, feeling Thorian's presence beside me, his warm, steady strength a comfort against the cold night. We'd fought this battle together with all the other Alphas and my father, Alpha King Eric, and now we would face whatever came next. Together. Nyx's POV. The battlefield was silent now, the echoes of the war fading into a distant memory. As the sun began to rise over the royal lands, casting its gentle light over the remnants of the fight, I took a deep breath and let the weight of the victory settle in. Talia was gone, her dark plans with the rogues and beasts ended, and the continent was free from her schemes. I stood on the balcony of our quarters, the cool morning air brushing against my face. Alpha King Thorian was beside me, his presence a comforting steady against the quiet aftermath. The gardens below, once a scene of chaos, were now peaceful. As if nothing happened. You fine? Thorian asked, his voice a soft murmur. I nodded, my gaze sweeping over the landscape. Yes. The battle was fierce. He continued, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. But you were incredible. I turned to him, meeting his eyes. We all were. I saw how you tore among those rogues. Such a powerful mate I have, huh? Thorian's gaze softened, a rare tenderness showing in his eyes. Do you know what comes next? This time there was a hint of teasing in his tone. I allowed a small smile to form on my face. I raised an eyebrow. And what is it, my Alpha King? He took my hand in his, squeezing it gently. Maybe you wearing my surname, or you being my Queen Luna. My wolf leaped in happiness upon hearing that. I felt how my cheeks reddened, shy and yet excited about what he was saying. God, what would I do to this handsome Alpha? As the sun climbed higher, the gardens began to come alive with the sounds of the day. I turned to face Thorian again, my heart light despite the exhaustion. What are you planning to do next? Are you going back to? He smiled, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Of course, I have a continent to lead. But Princess, I've been thinking. About our future. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Oh, what have you been thinking about? Thorian's grin widened. About how wonderful it will be to have you as my queen. And, of course, the possibility of having a little family of our own. My cheeks warmed at the thought, and I playfully nudged him. Always thinking ahead, aren't you? It's one of my many talents, he said, his tone light and teasing. I'm already imagining how adorable our pups will be. I laughed, shaking my head. You're impossible. But you love me for it, he said, stepping closer and pulling me into his arms. I nestled against him, enjoying the warmth and the promise of what was to come. I do. Thorian's voice broke the comfortable silence once more, his tone playful yet affectionate. So, any thoughts on names for our future pups? I laughed, feeling my heart lift with each playful word. You really are a tease. And you love me all the more for it, he said, his voice warm and reassuring. Today's story is over. Thank you all for listening.